Welcome back to Square Off. Meet the Press moderator Kristen Welker stopped by the 12 News studios during a reporting trip to Arizona last week. We talked about the impact of abortion on the presidential races, how she might handle a presidential debate in the fall, and a new focus on reaching out to voters. Here's an edited version of our conversation.
Abortion rights are on the ballot here in Arizona in the fall. You've seen what's happened in the last several weeks. Where does abortion rate as an issue, either nationally or locally, as far as actually moving an election?
Abortion will undoubtedly be one of the big X factors in 2024. If you look at the polls here in Arizona and frankly, nationally, issues like immigration and the economy are the top issues for voters. But what we have seen in elections all across this country, whether it's the midterms or special elections where abortion is on the ballot, is that it is an energizing, motivating factor for Democrats. Republicans, and I've spoken to a number of Republican strategists across the country who say they have struggled with their messaging on this issue. So I think it is going to be an X factor. How will it play out? How will it impact turnout for the president for the big Senate race? We'll have to see. But undoubtedly, I think it's going to have an impact.
And the president is hitting it pretty hard. We're seeing a lot of ads here, almost by the week, from the Biden campaign. Does that tell us he thinks it's really important?
I think that Democrats have determined that the issue of abortion could make the difference in critical states like Arizona and, frankly, in other key swing states across the country. You can expect to see the Biden campaign continue to pour millions of dollars in ad money into running the types of ads that you are seeing here on your airwaves right now. You're also, I think, going to see the vice president really make this a cornerstone of her argument. A lot of people, a lot of Democrats say she's really found her voice on this issue. So don't be surprised if we hear her hit these arguments for reproductive rights on a weekly or near weekly basis heading into the election, heading into November.
Yeah, you probably know she's been here already.
Yes.
She was here right after the decision. Let's talk about the climate in Washington, and in particular how it affects the job you do. Go back to the debate 4 years ago and how much has changed, right? January 6th. Donald Trump trials. We see how that's spread to the Republican Party as a whole. How do you as a journalist on Meet the Press, doing interviews, deciding whom to interview, factor that in when you make those calls?
I think it is more critical than ever that we are hearing from a range of voices right now. One of our challenges as journalists is to help people come together and to be able to listen to interviews of elected politicians and those who want to seek higher office, and to hold them to account, but also to help to restore trust that our audience has in us. I think that's one of the big challenges. And I think to do that, we've got to foster conversations, even when they're tough, even when there's a lot of fact-checking involved. I think that's how you bring in a broader audience, and that's how, frankly, I think we are trying to restore the faith that the public has in the media.
Do you hear that viewer voice in your head saying, ask the follow-up question, ask that question again, because they're not answering? Do you hear that?
I do, and I try to keep my finger on the pulse of what voters care about. I do that in part by traveling across the country. Here I am with you in Arizona, your beautiful state, not just talking to you, talking to the people who live here, trying to get a sense of what they care about, what issues are top of mind for them, so that when I have to ask that follow-up, it just comes naturally.
Is there any, not looking for a name, but any kind of guest you won't have on the show?
I think in order to be on Meet the Press, we think about people who are impacting our politics in the political arena or impacting our political and cultural discourse, and the bar is very high for that. If we bring someone on the show who we know, and this you could argue applies to many guests, will require fact-checking, we do so with the knowledge that this is someone who's in the arena. This is someone who we need to be holding to account. We need to be asking them the tough questions. We're also really proud of the fact that we've started a segment called Meet the Moment, in which we are talking to people who are not necessarily elected officials, but people who are impacting the world in which we live.
There are going to be 3 presidential debates in the fall. I don't know if NBC's going to get one.
No one's called me yet.
No one's called you yet. If they do call you, a lot's changed since 2020. Donald Trump is now a defendant in criminal cases. Joe Biden, I think it's fair to say, is still your pretty much mainstream politician we've become accustomed to over the last many decades. How do you come to that? How do you factor in the criminal charges, January 6th, into a debate in a way that seems like you're being fair to both candidates?
We live in an incredibly challenging moment, but I think that all of the issues that you just raised, whether it is January 6th or the other range of topics that are on voters' minds, as you point out, another issue that former President Trump is facing are the indictments that he is dealing with, and that makes him a unique, historic candidate, unprecedented. Those are issues that have to be dealt with. And so if I were moderating that debate, I would find a way, likely to have both candidates weigh in and address those topics. And the reason for that is because voters are thinking about those topics. Might not be the top issue, but there are voters who are curious. There are voters who still have unanswered questions. And it's our job as journalists to try to address all of the issues that voters care about.
NBC and 12 News and other stations have a joint mission this election season called The Deciders.
Yes.
What's that all about, and why should it matter to voters?
The Deciders is something that NBC is incredibly proud of. Vaughn Hilliard, for example, is going to be in Maricopa County, one of the critical swing counties here in Arizona, really trying to make sure he's keeping his finger on the pulse of the voters who live in Maricopa County. And the reason why it matters, we are embedding our incredible correspondents all over the country in swing counties and swing states, is to make sure that we know what's happening on the ground and that we're not losing sight and not losing touch with what people care about. We can look at the polls. We can see that the polls tell us that the economy and immigration are still top issues. Issues relating to democracy, one of the big topics as well. But you really can only fully understand what voters care about by talking to them. And that's what The Deciders is all about.
And there are 3 presidential debates scheduled for the fall, starting on September 16th. You can see all of our Sunday Square Off coverage on our YouTube channel. Go to 12news.com/YouTube.